Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our third podcast for Town Hall Cafe. And we're here today with a special guest to my left, Miss A. Kouture, and to my right, Jamal Jones and Jason Lewis with LA Standard. And first of all, I really want to thank Morris Media Studios for hosting us and with all the engineering that they're doing for us, and we really appreciate it. And so, anyways, I'm going to start out with a quote that came to my mind, a couple weeks ago. And it goes like this. My only fault is that I don't realize how great I really am. And that was quoted from Muhammad Ali. And I think that's really, really important about what we're going to be talking about in the next couple of months, about how we need to know who we are and also what kind of game we're getting ready to step into. It's a fight. And we need to be in the game. We need to be on the court. And if you're a track star, you need to be on the track. And that's what we're going to be talking about, is how we can do this in 2018. So we're just sitting around here having a conversation about building a thriving community and how we must lead in that participation that makes that happen in the 21st century. So this 2018, we're no longer sitting on the sidelines, but we are in the game, making touchdowns, shooting outside shots, and standing in the middle of the court saying, I am the game. So anyways, our upcoming series, we're going to be talking about My Neighborhood to City Hall, and how we as citizens and also as taxpayers can participate and engage in issues that affect our lives. So we want to break it all the way down to build up our voices here in the historic LeBert Park. So let's just start out with some conversation. Let's introduce our special guest, Miss A. Kouture, yes. And tell us about who you are and what you do here in the community.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, number one.
Well, you're welcome.
I'm very glad to be here today. I have worked in the Los Angeles community for well over about 10, 15 years in the form of economic development and civic engagement from the media standpoint as well as from the retail consumer standpoint. So I definitely see the power of our community in the forms of dollars spent as well as the changing demographics and psychographics of the community and how we can have a greater impact on what's going on here in the city of LA.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Are you a part of an organization or?
Yes, I've worked actively with Community Coalition over the past few years, as well as Shields for Families. I've also worked with Operation Hope, but I recently launched my own organization, the California Black Restaurant Hospitality Association. And what that is that's bringing together restaurant owners, hospitality workers, concierges, those that deal with tourism, which is the leading industry here in Los Angeles as well as in the California area. And what we want to do is we want to have the community more a part of the decisions that are being made in the building and the development of the city, as well as the special events and tourism and contracts that come through the city as well. We want to show that not only on the minorities front, but from the front of women as well as young people, that there are viable local community businesses that can take part in growing the city's profit and bottom line, which is what it's all about, but as well as, helping communities by creating jobs and education and really feeding the future. So that's the goal for the group. We're not here to be activists, but we're here to be advocates. And we want to use that advocacy to be able to help our community financially as well as help the city financially.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Jamal Jones.
Me?
It's you.
Me?
What's happening in your world?
Oh, boy. I mean, I've been watching the news like everyone else. I don't know if anyone's been watching the news or reading the paper. What do we have exciting that just happened recently? There's the Oprah. Do you see the Oprah sign on the 10 freeway? Vote for Oprah. This whole Oprah,
Right.
the Oprah deal.
Right.
It's become a huge conversation, interesting conversation. Been talking to my family about that. I you see what's happening and people saying, okay, that's we can vote, but I think it's just a situation of where are we going? As far as when it comes to that right now in society, it's like, I'm not saying Oprah's a bad person or, that should be a candidate but that we're thinking about presidential candidates and we're saying, okay, here, this is Oprah.
Right,
but,
right.
What's going on with our political climate right now that, now that's what we're doing. It's interesting. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And then Trump.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then, and then locally, the liquor bank, we kind of were talking about that earlier. Locally, we want to talk about local politics. I know we've had, Sebastian resigned. That was a huge situation right now. They're getting ready to run individuals for that seat. I think that's a huge opportunity for folks to kind of look at in regard to figuring out us putting someone in Sacramento, if it's this term or the next term, or just looking at politics in general locally. Herb Weston's seat will be up in 2 years. I think that's something the community needs to rally around to start looking at who we're going to put to represent us and start figuring how to stop this seat change situation. We've been talking about that for the past 2 weeks because right now we have candidates, one in particular I know was working for our senator, and that one is running for Sebastian's seat.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But again, this is someone from the inside, and I think I'd like to see someone from the outside come in there and start changing up some things when it comes to our political situation. But that's about it.
Yeah. And what about you, Jason? What's happening
there-
with the LA Standard?
Yes, there's a ton of interesting stories. The past couple papers I ran, there was one very interesting story. It's a few guys. They went to Crenshaw High School. And then the three of them, they all went to West LA College. Then they all went to Clark Atlanta University. And then they came back and they opened up a income tax shop on Slauson, I think on 6th Ave. And they do a whole lot more than income tax. They do that. They do bookkeeping, financial planning. They do, and they're teaching people on how to manage their money, on where to invest their money. So it was just a great story that you had these three guys who were from this community, and they left. And the thing I always hear about people who go to Atlanta, they usually stay in Atlanta.
Right.
And these three guys came back because they wanted to teach their community what they learned. Another great story that had gotten a lot of attention in the Standard was comedian Angela Means opened up a vegan shop on Crenshaw, on Crenshaw, and I believe it's 29th. It's in it's all right. So the place used to be Taco Bell way back in the day, like 20 years ago, and then it turned into a soul food place, and now it's a donut shop. And she moved in, and she shared the place with the donut shop, and people are going in there like crazy. The food is good. I'm not a vegan, but I tasted the food. I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty excellent. So,
Right.
But the biggest story that came out, and actually this is probably the story that I've never seen a story get this much attention from in my 10 years in covering the news and sports in this community. But the liquor bank story, it got so many hits on my website. I was totally stunned. I knew it would get a lot of hits, but it got about 20 times more hits than any other story I've ever gotten. And that's about 20 times more hits than the typical stories at other publications too. And it was interesting to see people's comments on social media. Some people loved that the liquor bank is lost in the licenses, and a lot of people said it's an eyesore, it's not good for the community. But then you had a lot of people, who were appalled that we're getting rid of the liquor bank, and they called it a local landmark, and then it's the gentrification issue. It's interesting that people were unaware of this stuff and what's happening, but I guess it goes back to the topic we're on, is getting people engaged, that if people were to simply go to the local and neighborhood council meetings, they would have heard about this, years ago and months ago, because this has been in a process for a long time. And the first time I heard about it was because I attended the neighborhood council meeting, and it was talked about. So it's just one of those things in our community. There's a lot of changes that are happening, and if we're not involved, then we're not going to know about this stuff until after it's happened, and then we're going to be upset when
it happens.
When choices have been made for us instead of us influencing it. Yeah.
And so the conversation is, well, how do we influence it?
Yeah.
How do we get to know what's going on?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, the times I've been to the neighborhood council meeting, the local politicians are there, or representative from the local politicians there. So that gives people an opportunity to engage. And if you're not engaging, then the decision is going to be made on your behalf. And that's pretty much it. It's just start to get involved in attending these meetings.
Right. We had started a conversation right before you came talking about the liquor bank and what our opinions were of it. And you're right. I mean, it's been 50-50, I think, as far as, walking around the community and listening to different folks. Half of them are like, this is, a lot of them are saying, this is appalling and gentrification. And the other half are like, no, it should have, we should have got rid of it. I think one of the things is the process in which it happened, because you talk about the voice. I mean, the voice of the community. I think that was one of the things I was upset with, is that there was this push saying that, the voices of the community have expressed this for a long time. And some of the voices that I've talked to have said, okay, well, I buy my stuff there. He's got sandwiches there back in the day. And I really didn't see a problem. I think that the thing that made me upset is it seemed like it was in conjunction with the development that's happening in the area. Mm-hmm. My argument was that I feel that if development wasn't happening in the area, it'd probably be here for another 20 years.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So if there wasn't an economic interest,
it
would stay open. But now that there is, it's like I think that there is an idea of what is going to be there instead of that. And then if that property can be acquired and something else would come, be it a mixed use, apartments, whatever is going to go there, that's going to be better for the mall, or because of that project just right across the street, they'll do that because there's a liquor store right across the street. There's another liquor store right there too. It's like, why are they not trying to pull that license? Because that one arguably has a little bit more chaos going on at that one. So it's like, so what makes that one more, appalling than the one that's right across the street from it? So,
and I agree with you 100%. Yeah. I took it strictly from an economic standpoint. I do believe that it is a cultural landmark that we, that's been there. Kind of people know it from movies and different things of that nature. But I think it was purely an economic interest at this time. And I think that if they really are taking the community into consideration, they would have presented us options of what can go there in that place. What they shared with us was that the license was revoked, and the owner said that he would sell to the highest bidder. And so that means that leaves it open for any developer, those that are in the mall, they're planning on bringing a hotel into the area, some mixed use there. They're going to make some changes around the Staples store. There's just so many things going on. And like the gentleman said here, there's a liquor store across the street. There's been a lot of chaos at the 7-Eleven. They've never talked about shutting the 7-Eleven down. Right. If you go around the corner, there's a few liquor stores right next to the gas station on the other side of Kaiser Hospital. Right. They haven't spoke of shutting those places down either. So I think that, if they were really, concerned, as they say, about empowering the community and saying that we're doing this in your behalf, that they would work a bit harder to make sure that they keep us informed when the decision is getting ready to make a change. When they put up signage to let us know that the train is coming and they're doing new things in the mall. I think that there's maybe 2 or 3 newspapers on the street of Crenshaw. There's a lot of businesses where you can put up posters, let us know when property is going up for sale or when things are changing in our community. I remember when they brought Krispy Kreme and Walmart into the community, and a lot of people were very sketchy because we know that those are usually starter places where, they're safe spots that they know that the community really are not going to quote unquote terrorize. But once those areas kind of, they get comfortable and it's a soft opening, then it's like, okay, let's bring some other places. So I agree with you. I think that, it deserves an extra look. It deserves to have a spectacle eye, put on it. And I think that it's our job now for us to take it a step further and use civic engagement and saying, okay, you've said that you've helped us. Now, how is this going to really help us and help the community?
Well, then there's what you said, developers who there is a relationship that the elected officials do have with the developers. It's just a fact. Mm-hmm. So, one of them was, the Amalfi project that was very controversial, which was on Stalker. There is a relationship there in communication between the council office and that developer. But there, like you said, there needs to be more communication between the community and that developer because, again, they have big money.
Right.
And, I think in order for our interests to be, like you're saying, economic interests, if something goes for sale, this is where we need to try to figure out how more dollars can be leveraged to folks that are going to have more of an interest for those folks in the community. Because, right now I don't have the money and capital to be able to start a project, but my interests naturally are going to be with the community, but I don't have the capital to do that. Mm-hmm. So that's what we have to be able to leverage and start communication with folks that are looking at this place, but in order to let them know what our interests are as opposed to just maybe, a council office or something like that who's going to be the one that's going to negotiate for us. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I think it needs to be like a chair. It has 4 legs,
Right.
You need all 4 legs for that chair to hold up.
Right.
You've done your part by putting a spotlight on it through the media. The council does its part by saying, okay, let's let our neighborhood business owners know, this is what's going on. These are all the options, how we can come up with a great strategy. And then we need to have the community aware and involved so that they can be a part to push it forward or, help vet ideas. And then we need the councilman's office to actually carry that through. I think the issue is that sometimes when it comes to civic engagement, we confuse civic engagement with political involvement. Mm-hmm. And civic engagement is not just politics. It is doing things within the community to advocate, for the betterment of the community.
Right.
So it's not just voting for your councilman or voting for your, the president of the United States. It's about actually saying, these are the things that our community needs. What can we do as a community for our own social responsibility to get out here and say, this is what we think would be the best move for change. I was aware that I drove past and it was like a vegan spot in a donut shop. Yeah. And I saw it until I just spoke with you now. Mm-hmm. And I have an organization that helps restaurant owners, How is that? But it's because we need this chair. We need for someone to help put a spotlight on it. We need to be able to bring gentlemen, like you said in your newspaper, who have the bookkeeping business. We need to be able to bring them over to our business owners and say, hey, this is how we get a bookkeeping service. I was with the councilman on this past weekend and we discussed, some things. And I said, hey, here's a thriving business community. He said, we have 3 or 4 things in the pipeline. We would have loved to know when they have these particular meetings. So it takes that moving around and that dialogue, but we can't get stagnant in one pipeline. We have to keep that fluidity going, and we need everybody to help hold us up in order to keep that fluidity going.
Exactly. And I think that's what we're talking about, today and in the future, gatherings here at the table is that how do you do that? Going back to this quote that I found that really got me about Muhammad Ali is that the only fault that we don't realize how great we really are. And I think what has happened over the years is that you were talking about the last podcast, is that we have, for some reason, we're not even regarded anymore. Mm-hmm. It's almost like you elect these politicians, mm-hmm. City Hall is here and we're here. And then at one point you come to say, wait a second. I'm a taxpayer. Right. Who's paying your salaries here?
Mm-hmm. We are.
We are. Right. And also we are a part of the equation, but I think it has been systematically or whatever, it has put the people, in a certain area where you have these almost career politicians to make money so they can send their children to college, and that we're not even regarded. But I think like what you were saying, is that we're going to have to break that up.
Yes.
Because my question is, where's the plan?
Right.
There should be a big plan, strategic plan in Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall about what's happening, where the whole world can see. Mm-hmm. And if you have any questions, then you can talk to your councilman or the powers that be. But we don't know.
And I think we need to break it up. I think that we have to break this into little pieces and kind of break the wall down that way.
Right.
For example, like we've been seeing rough sketches and, artistic drawings of
Right.
the possibility of what it could be.
Right.
It takes us putting these things in a newspaper, putting them on the front
Right.
door of businesses. Have you seen what this area, not just Crenshaw, Inglewood,
Right.
just right on, and I don't have any discontent towards any politician.
Sure.
So, I'm not being biased or putting blame on anyone. But even when I'm just a follower of Mr. Wesson's Twitter, and just on his Twitter 2 days ago was a beautiful 3D model sketch of him standing there with a few of his deputies, and they had a beautiful layout of what the Inglewood area is going to look like in the next 10 years. And you would have thought that it was something out of Toronto, Canada. Like, it was so well done.
Yeah.
We need to put those pictures in our newspapers. We need to put those pictures up on the wall at our community places like the barbershops, little ground root areas, in our stores, places where we frequent a lot. Because if you take the blinders off and let people see what's going on, then it's like, okay, I can kind of make a connect. Right now we're bombarded with so much information, and there's so much to have to digest in a day, especially with social media and our cell phones. Also, I think, too, we have to be very careful. We have to use discernment with distractions. And, what I actually didn't take anything from the Oprah. I guess as a woman, and it was Me Too, and I'm Black, and, you put all those things together, people thought that, like, you should care a lot more. But for me, I saw it as a distraction.
It was a distraction.
It was if you get us focused on what it'll be like. This man has only been in office for 1 year.
Right.
And if people do their history, because I'm a history buff,
Okay.
and I'm a political history buff,
Okay.
if you understand, Nixon did not get impeached until the first year of his second
That's
term.
right. That's right.
People forgot about that,
That's right. He did
but
a
he
lot of
did an
stuff.
entire 4 years, in fact, 5 years if you include his first term.
right.
Then he was impeached. So everyone's calling for this whole impeachment process like this is something that can happen overnight.
Right.
And so, I'm telling people right now, don't get distracted by that. There are key issues on the table with immigration, with these workers' laws, with these different tax movements that are going down. The real estate industry is in a boom. If you notice, the stock market is going up every single day. They're not having a problem. But if you keep us distracted with this reality TV, WWF style, conversation about, it would be fun to see it. And, he throws bait. Trump throws, Oprah would be fun. And it runs and people talk about it and they miss all the other laws that are being passed at the exact same time. So I wasn't concerned about him and Oprah. I was concerned what was happening at this World Economic Summit that just came past this past few weeks. Let's have real conversations about policies that are going through with marijuana and with, the right to choose laws and all those different things. These are critical things that impact our community that we don't have time to get distracted. So I think demystifying it, as well as calling these distractions for what they are, and then really getting the people out there and saying, look, we may not have a lot of time. All of us sitting here are not only engaged in our community, but we have lives and family and work and things that we have to do. We have to say, okay, if you just do this one thing on this level, anytime they want you to give money, what do they say? If you can give $5, just give $5. Right. If you can give $50, you get a cup. If you get $500, you get a T-shirt. We have to engage people on that level. Maybe for business owners that can't go up to Sacramento, we can say, just put these signs up in the store about what this area could potentially look like. If we don't do anything else, but for the civic community, we say, okay, look, we're going to print out legislation. Everyone that has a politically inspired blog, let's just make it your commitment. We'll supply you with the content, but can you post it? For our brothers and sisters that are on the ground root level with the activists, we can say, okay, go ahead and pick it and have your booths, but please make sure that you have on every single table people that are coming up on the ballot. These are things that we have to do, that we can break it down into chunks that are more edible, but they're also something that can when you put all those things together, you have a full plate. You have something that can impact. So I think, that's just how, my approach would be. And
you're building a force.
Right.
You're building quote unquote a movement,
Right.
a civic movement, but the movement should be there anyway.
Right.
We should be moving. And I think that's the whole part of civic engagement. It's like we have to be a part of that. I mean, if you're going to be a citizen, if you're going to be a taxpayer, that comes with something.
Right.
You know,
That's
that
right.
comes with some kind of involvement, like you were saying, on any type of level. And we need to be creative of doing it. And I was just talking, okay. Okay, I was YouTubing it this morning, right? And I saw Jay-Z and had a very good conversation with Van Jones from CNN. And I have to say, I was very impressed. Matter of fact, he was very motivating to me, you know, what he was talking about, because Van Jones was asking him about Trump and all that. And he says what it comes down to, that people want to be respected at the end of the day. You know, he says it's not about money, which, you know, he says it's about respect, and that we should really welcome this time of history because it's all in front of us. You know, the veil has been lifted. This is what's going on. So it's almost like, you know, space is telling you, you need to do it on another level.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean,
anyway.
to say, I mean, we know we have our economics, and I'm so glad she's on our board now, because this is a beautiful thing. Because everything comes down to economics, in my opinion. You can talk about poverty, homelessness. We go on and on and on about race.
Right.
And all that is a tool of distraction. Like, even when you go back to slavery was about money.
Yes.
And it was not about race. It was about money. And the people that created the idea of black people being animals and all this other stuff to dehumanize them, they knew that wasn't the truth.
Right.
They just did that because it justifies them or enables a human being to denigrate another human being to use them for free labor.
Right.
So it got programmed in people's
Right.
minds, and now it exists to this day. That was all economics.
Right.
So you're saying, you know, it's not about money, because that's what Jay-Z was saying, but you know,
Right.
he's rich. So, I mean, so the thing, or he's wealthy.
Right.
So, you know, he's going to say that.
Right.
But I love what you're saying in regard to the distraction piece, because thought about Hillary Clinton, right? And this is where I call BS and a lot of this stuff. It was like, hey, she's not even running anymore. Why is Hillary
Right.
not out there in the streets with the other politicians, Congress, senators, assembly? Why is she not out there mobilizing everyone right now around policy and legislation that's affecting every American person? But what is she doing right now? On a book tour talking about Russia and Trump and how they took this away from her and all this other stuff. That's what she's doing right now. Why? And that is where I think people need to understand, like, you know, this is where their minds are right now, as opposed to what they're doing now, the Trump stuff. Trump this, Trump that, Trump this, Trump that. Yet there's something being passed right now that they're not pushing or talking about or educating us about, to say, you know what, this is going to really affect you guys right now. Let's put this Trump stuff on the side. Forget Trump. Let's just start figuring out what we're going to push in the House that's going to benefit all of us as American people, and mobilizing everybody around a bill or something like that. That's what needs to be happening. Trump should not even be, you know, don't give him the energy that we're giving him right now. But everyone is focused on that.
Right.
Are they focused on the Oprah thing, right? And they're just like, Oprah's going to save all of us. I'm like, seriously? You know what I'm saying? That's what you think is going to happen?
Right.
But it's a distraction. Everything is a distraction away from what.
But hope
should
is a
be doing.
dopamine, you know? And I think that what happened is that because we get so hooked on hope, you know,
Right.
and it becomes something that says, you know, this is why we get on and we do Motivation Monday and Turned Up Tuesday and, you know, Throwback Wednesday, Throwback Thursday and Wisdom Wednesday. We want that dopamine every single day because it takes discipline to break things. And what happens is that when we are too lazy to embrace the discipline, you know, people don't understand that bus boycott. Again, my history side of me. That bus boycott was 183 days. That took discipline to stay out there and keep going. When Martin Luther King was assassinated, God rest his soul, his wife continued that very next week. She marched with the sanitation workers even after his death, because they understood that this is not something that can just be a little temporary high, because what happens is that when you don't get that high anymore, which is, I feel like a lot of what President Obama had to go through was that after he wasn't a man that would continue to feed that hope dopamine. And so what happened was they said, well, he was going to come in and he said that he was going to do this. This man came into a ER situation with something that was literally pronounced dead, and he was trying to shock it and bring it back to life. Right. This was not a situation to cast hope. He got the reality of what was really happening. And even now when they interview him, the very thing that he says was that, I think I was a little bit too optimistic. I think that, I thought of America a lot more progressive than what it really was. Right. And he had to experience that reality. And what happened was people said, well, what happened? And this is what's happening even now. They're like, well, what's going on? And I think that the alt-right doesn't want to admit it, that they're going through what the left kind of went through with all of their hope in Obama. They're saying, well, Trump came in and, okay. And that's why they're saying we got to give him passes. We have to take time with him. And so, I think that we can't get people hooked on the hope. We have to tell people that it takes discipline and it takes hard work and it takes time. Donald Trump is not the deciding factor in this legislation that is going through. These votes in the House and in the Senate is everything that is within our control as constituents. They are making the deciding votes in what was going on. It is a shame in Alabama that vote went the way it did. The only reason was that scandal that he had, with sexual abuse. If it wouldn't have been that scandal, that man would have won with no problem, because we don't see at the core on a constituent level. People probably would not have even engaged if it wouldn't have become an issue. So it goes back to my example of using the chair. The media did their part to put a spotlight on it. But we have to figure out what we do as a community to be disciplined and responsible and have respect for ourselves. Like, I understand what Mr. Carter is saying, but we have to have respect for ourselves, I know we want to be respected, but even here within the community, Mr. Sebastian is giving up his seat due to health issues. Right now, do we respect ourselves to ask the tough questions of who are the people that are the options? I want them at my church or at my community meeting, or like what you're doing on my radio show. Do we have the discipline to go to every single meeting until it's election time and do the election? Or are we just like, oh, he sounded good, I'm just going to wait and see what the neighborhood council say. I'm going to wait until Maxine Waters prints out that sheet that tells me what I need to vote, and I'm just taking my sheet down there. It's not a disciplined approach. And so I think that, if we do those things, it would help us.
But that's part of the education piece, and I think that's what's going on with politics right now. And you talk about the hope, and you talk about the Democrats, we talk about the Republicans, and I think with Obama there was a lot of hope. People were like, oh, my God, he's going to do this and he's going to do that. And I think we have to learn to be critical of both sides of the aisle, the Republicans and the Democrats, and look at what's going on with the political system and basically identify the fact that it's not working. It hasn't worked for 40 years, 30, 40 years. This is a country where, 60% of the people don't have $1,000 in the bank for an emergency fund. And I think more than 50% of the people in the United States make $33,000 a year in the richest country in the world. Now, where's all the rest of that money going? That's what you have to ask. It's going to your senators and your presidents and the lobbyists and all these other people that are paying these folks to make the decisions for us. So, yeah, we put these people in office, but who are they beholden to? I'll probably get chewed out for making this statement, but people can do their own research about that. When you look at Obama and we look at healthcare, we can criticize both sides of the aisle, but we look at healthcare and we look at who was one of the main supporters of our president, pharmaceutical companies and Wall Street. That's a fact. And so you look at, okay, well, why is healthcare not making any sense? And what did the healthcare package do? That was a big gift to the healthcare industry with that situation that he had put out. And Republicans, that's what I'm saying. It's not going to be any different. Like they're like, oh, we're going to put our own thing out there. No, it's going to be the exact same thing, because it's not about what the Republicans or the Democrats wants. It's what the healthcare industry wants. And what the healthcare industry wants does not make sense for us. But if you're getting lobbied to by them, you're not going to piss them off. And that's what's going on right now with him, be it in local politics, be it with oil. Just follow the money. And I think once we understand that, and we start putting people in office that are not going to be susceptible to economic influence, then you're going to start to see things happen in our benefit. But at a local level, you're going to see charter schools going up all over the place because somebody's lobbying from the charter school industry to say, okay, this is what we need. And does that really make a lot of sense for the public school system? I don't know. But there are people lobbying when it comes to that. Is it positive or negative? I don't know. I have to look more into that. But there are lobbyists doing that to help influence those decisions. Why are they just popping up? Does the community have an input on that? You know what I'm saying? Or is it your council person saying, okay, I think this is going to be a good idea for you, and selling it to you? So,
and we have to filter. That definitely is something that I'm learning even more and more myself, as far as, you know, the onslaught of information that is presented to me. I have to look at, you know, I'm a parent, I'm a business owner, I'm a woman, but I have to break down, okay, what are the core issues? Because there's so many things going on right now. What are the core issues? What are the issues that impact me and impact my realm of influence? And how can I have an impact there? So if I know that I come out of the media background, then I make strategic partnerships with the gentleman, and I say, okay, this is how we can mix economics in media. You know, if we're saying, okay, this is what's happening, you know, in the community as a parent, then I step into that area. I'm not going to go way over to immigration, because immigration is not an issue that affects my family. Now, I'm not saying that's not an issue that needs to be addressed, but I'm saying that we would have more coverage if everyone took a piece of what's going on and we're able to attack it better. But it's just like, immigration is the issue. We all ran over here and was protesting at the airports. Okay, then women's rights were the issue. We all ran downtown and we were protesting downtown. Then we found out there was things going on with the closure of the liquor bank and the changing of Leimert Park. Okay, let's all run over here and deal with Leimert Park. And this is what they want to do. They want to tire us out. And they know that once you get tired enough, you're just going to say, I've been to 5 protests. I got all the T-shirts and all the bumper stickers. Thank you. But
it's division.
Yes.
It goes back to that too, because again, we have the Me Too movement. We have a lot of the women's movement, the Women's March. And I understand, you know, some of the things that were going on with that. The only thing that troubles me in regard to with the movement with the women's, I don't want it to be something that's like it's a focus on trying to get Trump out. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, we're trying to get Trump out and we need to put someone else in office. And then the attitude is like, okay, so we need to put a liberal Democrat that's going to be the replacement for Trump. And my opinion is like, is that going to be helpful for us? Because it's the Dems and the Republicans, what have they done for the American people? And it's like, don't get caught into that trick bag where all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, we need to put Hillary back in or something, like she's going to be the one who's going to solve everything, right? And that's what you hear. Hillary would have done this. Would she really have done that? Or would Trump or whoever, or all of them? It's like this is where we as people this is what we need to say, is that we need to say stop right now, that this may not have been working all these years, and we need to come together, Women's March, LGBTQ, everyone, Black, Latinos, come together and say, you know what, this is not working for us. The fact that $33,000 a year is what 50% of the people in this country are making, who's surviving on that? That's the issue. Okay, so let's talk about that. How are we going to put more money in people's pockets? How are we going to make it where gentrification cannot affect anyone in the community because they're economically competitive? How are we going to talk about that? That should be number one. The mayors just had a meeting in New Orleans, a meeting of the mayors, and they talked about that. They talked about gentrification as being one of the issues, and then the balance between the city trying to pay debt. You know, so it's like, okay, they have to economically improve the city so that they can pay off some of the stuff going on in the city, but at the same time the repercussions of that is people can get priced out because all of a sudden an area becomes more desirable and all this other stuff. So then it goes back to our 20-year plan. So why isn't it that they don't have this start, like our 20-year plan is they need to have a 20-year plan of economic development for people, not for buildings. That's the thing. Like, how is it that you can invest in the people and have that 20-year return because everyone's going to be at a certain level, and that's going to stimulate the economy because then all of a sudden you're going to have more jobs that are paying more $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. That's what we can get people to that point, but that's not what's happening. You're just seeing buildings and infrastructure go up and people that are just stagnant. They're just stagnant wages, stagnant everything, and then they're just getting pushed out. and new economic folks are coming in, and they just go to another area and just remain poor. And it's like, who's doing anything about that?
Because we haven't talked about value, and we have to go back as the American people. And I understand the American first and all of those things, but at the end of the day, we have to look at how valuable is it to be an American again. And that's, to me, one of the key issues that we're facing. When we look at how we stand educationally, against the rest of the world, what happens is, even though they say the rest of the world has state-run media, we really have state-run media, because America only tells itself what it wants to hear. And so if you tell yourself you're the number one country in the world, but we have statistical data that proves otherwise on multiple levels, Los Angeles has the highest incarceration population in the world. 17,000 people move through the incarceration system every year. 14,000 come from high school into the prison and jail population system. That is an issue that has a global impact. So here, they're already telling you that we're pennies on the dollar in just that. Regentrification is not a race issue. It's just happening in urban communities, so it has a color as far as the face. But the average rent in America is, like you said, it's $1,234. But the average minimum wage in America is $7.25. In order for your rent of the $1,235 to be a quarter of your salary that you take home every month, you would have to make $30 an hour. That's not a color issue. That we have to look at what's going on in regentrification of our cities. But because Asian populations, Russian populations, European, Australian populations are more valuable, they're looking at their currency, what they bring to the workforce when they come here, innovation, technology advancement. They're a person that says, yeah, we're going to price our market to the most valuable market set. The same way with us. How would we build our business? You would build your business based on whoever your target consumer is that brings you the greatest dollar. I could sell my burgers for $5 and talk to 30 people. Or, like we see out here with these luxury restaurants, I could sell my burger to 10 people for $50, and it's less work, it's less responsibility, and I got double of my money than it would be for me making, $5 burgers for 100 people. So as Americans, again, with that respect for ourselves, it's having that real conversation to say, how do we bring value back into our communities, and as a result, back into our cities, so that we can become more viable? I want, at the end of the day, for it to be a race issue. I want, at the end of the day, when we get done, and this is controversial, so people may, email me about it, but at the end of the day, I want it to be that I've, came at them correctly as far as economic reform. We have lobby groups that are within our local business sets and in our community advocacy. Our media is coming strong, and if we're denied, it can be for no other reason but race, like President Obama. You cannot deny him as far as his qualifications to be president. Now, what he did once he was in office and dealing with the nuances of being the first person of color in that position and dealing with a system that was already broke before he got there, and then on top of it to be in that position, that's a different discussion. But definitely for qualifications, they couldn't deny his experience as well as his ability to handle the job. I want that's my purpose for what I want to see in 2018 and going into the future. I want to empower our business owners. I want to empower our local community residents. Let's have conversations before you sell your house. I understand that you can move to Lancaster and get double for your money, and you could probably make $1 million off your house and go pay $500,000 for one in Lancaster and maybe save $500,000. I know you could probably move to Houston and get, more of your money. We need you here. We need your property here, or we need your property grandfathered to someone else to keep the community going. These are the conversations that we want our community to be able to have, so that if something happens after that, then we can say it's a race issue. But you can't say it's a race issue when I'm talking to one of the mothers at home in church, and she's telling me, Man, they came to my house and they said they were going to give me $1 million cash. And I live right here. I've been in West Adams for a number of years. Or I was one of the first blacks in Compton, and they're offering me $700,000 for my house. I'm going back to Texas. I'm going back to, whatever. We can't blame them for that. We didn't tell them to tell us what was going to happen when the liquor bank closed. They just said if they could have, that revoke would have went right up under the radar and would have transitioned over to a new buyer without none of us knowing. Right now we're woke. So, that's why, it kind of didn't get past us. But still, we're sitting here and they're like, their license is revoked. So my question to the councilman was, now what? Like, I don't care if the license is revoked. I want to know what that prime piece of property, you move One United Bank up the street, what are you going to do with that property? What are you going to do with that whole entire strip mall that is right there from Krispy Kreme, where the old M&Ms used to be? What are you going to do with that entire block from M&Ms all the way down to the next block where the liquor bank starts? That is probably one of the most valuable pieces of land that we have in the Crenshaw corridor. What's your plan for that?
They're going to sell it. I mean, the city isn't. The city's not in the process of real estate, but someone is going to be over there and they're going to develop it. But I think when you're talking about race, I think that when we talk about this, it is a socioeconomic issue. But disproportionately, people of color, Latino and Black, are affected by what's happening because this is happening in historically poor communities. Right. So now all of a sudden that there's an interest in these communities, and now there's a lot of development and funds coming in here and redevelopment and all this other stuff. Prices start to go up, home prices start to go up. And I think, just speaking on myself, you know what I mean? Folks that have lived here that may not own property right now, but are in a position to actually afford a house that might have been $500,000 or $450,000, find themselves in a situation where they can't afford a house at $750,000 to $800,000. So disproportionately, you're going to see people of color that don't have the money as other races may have. So it becomes a race issue when it's like, okay, because historically, economically, we have not been there, and we are still working on that. So I think that's where you'll see, again, it's always the Latino and the Black communities that suffer more. But it's happening to white folks too. It's happening in Culver City. It's happening in every areas. But for some reason, it seems that we end up getting the brunt of what's happening. And I mean, is it fair and is it equitable? And that's what we need to be able to see in a situation where Black folks, where we can say, in our communities, if this was ever going to happen, it's not going to affect us. A lot of folks do end up selling their houses, which we do need to understand that we need to hold on to them because you need to look at it like oil. You know what I'm saying? Like because when these guys are coming over here, think of it as oil under your house. Like it's like, oh, I'm going to give you $2 million for your house. Like, why are you offering so much money for this house? Just because the future of what's going to happen with that property, you're sitting on oil. Like that is the best real estate in the city of Los Angeles, and they see that. So they're going to give you more money for that. So you have to try to hold on to it. But then the flip side is, for Black folks, this may be some of the most money they've ever seen in their life. And they're like, I can retire now. But folks that are coming in that I've talked to, their parents are giving them $200,000 down on the house, $300,000 down on the house. And they have that family wealth. So they are able to come in and do some of the things that we have not been able to do. My parents can't do that for me. So it's just, this is where we have to try to get competitive. And Dr. King, he's talked about it as well, and talking about the land grant colleges and all this other stuff, and the history of wealth in the United States and Black folks and why we're not at that point. We have to figure out how we're going to be competitive. And right now, again, we're not. We're not the developers. We don't see ourselves building skyscrapers downtown economically. That's just not how it is. So again, folks that are going to be developing the community, naturally may have interests outside of this community because they live outside of the community. The folks that are buying all the property don't live here. They're developing it, don't live here. So the interest is naturally going to be maybe something that's going to benefit them or look better for them in the future. So, and
we have to look at, again, our value. Because we don't have the money, because we don't have the placement as far as having people represent us, proportionally within the political system. We have to say, we know that we make things cool. We brand things, know, and we have to go back within our community and remember this is what you're saying. My thought is, I don't realize how great I am. We don't know our value. And when you don't know your value, you leave yourself open and susceptible to being violated,
Right,
and so I think that's what. Yeah, we don't have 700,000. Our communities are broken. Our children who. I'm woke, but I'm a single mom.
Schools,
So
and I think
the schools, it's broken.
And I think that's what we were talking about. I mean, that was the plan. That was the systematic plan, is to keep us asleep and to realize that we don't have value. I mean, we were talking about the celebrity thing. They want us to be here, and they're doing this down here. And so, and this has been happening for the last 30 or 40 years. I mean, I might be a little older than a lot of you guys here on the table, but I remember, my hero when I was in high school, early college, was Angela Davis. It was this whole idea of, yes, we do have value, and we're going to work on it, and organize our communities. But here we are, we sit here in 2018, and I think the kind of conversation we're having here, people are having, like in Chicago, D.C., Atlanta, people are beginning to wake up. Because it's obvious. If we don't, we got 7 minutes. Boy, we've been talking. But if we don't, we can see how this machine, how the end of the story might be. And I think, not hope, but I think it's almost faith that, it will come. We will come up again, as history has proven, that we are resilient and that we are figuring it out.
Right. And
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
I think we do a good job of bringing awareness to problems. And a lot of us, and we talk about problems, whether it's in the media, whether it's on on Facebook or Instagram with the hashtags. So we know what the problems are, but now the question is, what are the actions that we need to put forward to solve these problems? And I'm thinking within our own African American communities, unfortunately, we have to solve our own problems. I don't have faith that the government is going to come in here and they're going to do us any favors to fix our problems. No. So, but then I started to think there's a lot of programs in our own community that aren't publicized as much. Like with the whole thing about a lot of people, let's say if their parents pass away, they sell that house because it's a money grab. But there's certain programs like the real estate board. I'm spaced on what their actual name is, but they have programs that teaches us what is the value of the home and how to build in wealth through the home. There's a lot of jobs that we're not obtaining because that are within our own community, but there's programs to teach us how to take that jobs. And there's a big thing in Metro where you drive down Crenshaw, you don't see a lot of black people, in those construction jobs, which pay well. And like when we were talking with Marquise Harris Dawson, he said that to make their quota, their percentage, that they'll have a black person who holds the slow down sign or something like that, and that job doesn't take them into another job. But then there's programs, there's the carpenter programs. And I've done a couple stories on a couple of them that teaches them that will teach a person carpentry, and that a person could obtain that Metro job quickly. The fire department's a great job, and I think a lot of people in our community don't know it. It's a story I have coming up pretty soon, but a lot of people are unaware that the fire department pays extremely well. And that's a job that if you just graduated high school and you have a driver's license, you could get that job. So I think that we could solve our problems from within, but we need to keep talking about it. I think step one is that we talk about it. Step two is what are the actions in the game plan? What is X, Y, and Z that we need to do? And when we figure out what X, Y, and Z is, let's make sure that we are doing X, Y, and Z, and let's start checking stuff off the list so that we start getting stuff done.
Right. Correct. Well, I want to make a plug right now with someone who are really actually doing something in our community, and this is the African Town Coalition. And what they do is they feed the homeless with fruit and vegetables. And Dino was going to be here this afternoon, but they're feeding people right now. And I just thought this was just really, really cool that, that people are taking the initiative, to take care of our community, especially with fruits and vegetables, something that's wholesome, that people, can eat. And I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to have to start doing all of this ourselves, or being creative, like you were saying, to how to to actually organize and also put, action, as you were saying too, Jason, how to do this, in our communities. And so my first thing, what I'm going to do, I go to a lot of the empowerment council meetings. I think there should be a strategic plan out there about this neighborhood. Some of the changes or, the renovation should be plain, simple, in your paper, in all the other papers in the paper, to see what is actually going on and if you agree or you disagree. About it. So, but anyways, this is the African Town Coalition. If you're interested, contact Dino. His phone number is 818-795-6550. They also have a Gmail, African Town Coalition @gmail.com. And if you want to contribute or help out on Sundays. So, I don't know how many more minutes we have here.
If we have any more... 2 minutes.
We have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, wow. Well, thank you, Kouture, our guest, our special guest. I hope you come back.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think, these podcasts, what we thought about doing is let's start talking about, how we can, about the conversations, but also how we can actually make up an action plan for our communities. And, as we go forward, because I think we wanted to tackle the economic piece too.
Right, and then also that in doing this, that we would kind of build some bridges with other parts of the United States, because the thing is that we're talking about this, but there's other folks talking about it. And again, my thing is, just, black folks, we're talking about this, but again, as a whole, it's the middle class, it's the poor, it's everyone that's going through this. But again, disproportionately, we're being affected. Right. Disproportionately, we're worse, but everyone is being affected by this, and this should be the number one deal that's on everybody's tongue. Right. We talk about the political folks and all this other stuff, but it should be on everyone's mind to figure out what the solution is going to be, because it's getting worse with automation, all this stuff, doing jobs. I mean, all this stuff, it's getting worse. So we got to figure out what we got to do with it. So
and starting at home, like you're saying, since we're disproportionately represented, and we have to kind of, as you said, take care of ourselves. I definitely want to kind of get into your plan of commitment of really, I want to put business owners on notice, and work with the media. And not only do we need to have all of the media's in our community, their papers and collateral in each of our businesses, we need to have regular information posted, just like how we did in the civil rights movement, where they was able to give it out in church because that was the number one place. But now we have black businesses, and I'm going to do my part too with the businesses that I know to spotlight things that are going on in our neighborhood council as well as in our media, and then that'll help do a trickle effect across, and then not just talk about the issues, the problems, but really use the social media, to promote what the plans are, like these podcasts, like these other information forums where they can, get it in 140 characters or less and be able to, take it to their community.
Well, I think this is the end of our hour here, but I really enjoyed the conversation. And, of course, thank you so much, Come back again. And join us again next month for Town Hall Cafe. And have a great month and keep informed and action. Thank you.
Thank you.